Ma'am, step away from the nurse station. I work here. You match the description. Her hands trembled as they cuffed her. Right there. In front of children. In front of dying patients. A black woman in scrubs dragged through the hallway of the hospital she saved lives in for a wallet someone else dropped. They didn't check the footage. They didn't check her ID. They just called her aggressive. And as they pulled her outside, she saw the look in her patient's eyes. She trusted me. And now she thinks I'm a thief. Subscribe and tell us where you're watching us from. Natalie Brooks didn't even get to sit down. 12 hours in the ICU. 3 emergencies. 1 death. Her scrub still smelled like antiseptic and blood. She hadn't eaten since 6 a.m., hadn't seen her sister's text, and all she wanted was 10 minutes of air outside the hospital walls. But she didn't make it to the bench. 2 security officers intercepted her halfway through the automatic doors. Ma'am, we need to speak with you. The taller one was older, square-jawed, crisp mustache. The younger, tight buzz cut, mirrored sunglasses, inside the building. Natalie frowned. I'm off shift. Is something wrong? Step back inside, please. No explanation. No tone of respect. Not even an introduction. She glanced at their badges but caught only their eyes, hard, unreadable. Inside, the hospital had changed. Something in the air was off. Admin staff whispered near the nurse station. The ER desk was tense. Even the paramedics looked cautious. Natalie spotted Linda Templeton, her shift supervisor, standing near the supply cart. Linda's eyes darted when Natalie approached. Linda? What's going on? Linda didn't answer right away. The older guard spoke instead. There's been a report. A visitor's wallet is missing. Witness placed someone fitting your description near the waiting area 10 minutes ago. Natalie blinked. I haven't been near the waiting area in 4 hours. You sure? Yes, I'm sure. I've been in ICU room 3, running lines on a crash patient. The younger officer stepped forward. We need to check your bag. Natalie's breath shortened. I'm not opening anything without my union rep or a hospital administrator. This isn't an interrogation. It's a voluntary search. Then I'm voluntarily refusing. The pause was long. Too long. Then came the words that changed everything. Ma'am, turn around. The cuffs were cold. Unforgiving. The gasp that followed wasn't hers. It came from 2 interns behind the triage desk. One dropped her pen. Another reached for her phone but hesitated. Natalie looked at Linda. Linda said nothing. I work here, Natalie said, louder now. You know I work here. No one responded. She was led through the ER, past rooms where she'd performed CPR, past children she'd comforted, past families she'd quietly protected. And now? She was escorted like a criminal. A black woman in blue scrubs, wrists bound, with no one brave enough to say her name out loud. Outside, a crowd had formed near the patient drop-off zone. Visitors, nurses, security staff. Some stared. Others filmed. The older guard opened the back of the cruiser. Step in. Natalie froze. She looked back one last time and saw a mother holding her newborn, a patient she'd stayed 2 hours past her shift to help deliver. Their eyes met. The mother looked away. Natalie got in the car. Not one person stopped it. Not even the truth. They didn't take her to a precinct. They took her 3 blocks away to the hospital's private security office. Basement level. No windows. 2 chairs. A desk bolted to the floor. And a camera in the corner with a red blinking light that never stopped. Natalie sat cuffed to the chair for 38 minutes before anyone spoke. When the door finally opened, it wasn't a police officer. It was the hospital's director of risk and legal affairs, Darren Volkman. Late 50s. Polished. Corporate. He walked in like he was late to a meeting. Nurse Brooks, he said without sitting. I'm here to facilitate internal review of an incident that may involve criminal behavior on hospital property. Natalie looked up. Why am I handcuffed? He glanced at the guard in the corner and shrugged. Standard security protocol during an unresolved accusation. What's unresolved? I didn't steal anything. He placed a folder on the table but didn't open it. According to the complainant, her wallet was last seen inside waiting room B, where you were allegedly spotted. It went missing minutes later. She has filed a formal statement. And your first instinct was to arrest the only black nurse on shift? Volkman didn't flinch. No one's used that language, but everyone's thinking it. He finally opened the folder. Do you deny being near the waiting area between 3:45 and 4 p.m.? I clocked out at 3:42. I walked straight toward the parking lot. He flipped through pages. There's no footage of that path. That wing's camera was flagged for maintenance yesterday. Of course it was. Natalie clenched her jaw. Have you reviewed footage from ICU, Station 3? Asked the nurses. Asked the patients. We're reviewing all relevant data. Which meant no. They weren't investigating. They were waiting. For her to break. Or confess. What happens now? She asked. Volkman leaned forward slightly. We're contacting law enforcement. They'll decide how to proceed. In the meantime, you're suspended with pay, pending review. So I'm guilty until proven innocent. You're under review. No one's made conclusions. She looked down at her wrist. The red mark where the cuff had rubbed raw. Then why am I bleeding? Volkman didn't answer. He stood, closed the folder, and nodded to the guard. Uncuff her. We'll escort her home. Natalie didn't move. Her voice was low now. Barely a whisper. You didn't even ask what's in my bag. He paused at the door. We'll leave that to the police. As if it made it more official. More clean. She was escorted to a side entrance. A hospital van waited. Unmarked. No words spoken. She sat in the back. Alone. No badge. No defense. No voice. Just the echo of a system too proud to say one thing. We think you're the thief because of your skin. Natalie didn't go home. She went to her sister's. It was nearly 6 p.m. when she arrived, still in scrubs, still with the red line from the cuffs burning across her wrist. Mia opened the door and froze. What happened? Natalie stepped inside, dropped her bag, and sat on the floor. I was detained. At work. For stealing. Mia didn't speak. She just knelt down beside her. Natalie stared at the wall. I didn't do anything. They didn't ask. They didn't check. They just decided. The silence in the room was heavier than the hospital's ICU after midnight. By the time the sun set, Natalie had stopped shaking. But the next blow came the following morning. Her hospital login had been disabled. Her badge revoked. In her inbox, once full of scheduling updates, shift requests, birthday reminders, was empty. Locked out. Then came the phone calls. The first was from HR. This is just a procedural pause, the voice said, while we complete the investigation. The second was from a nurse friend, whispered like a crime. They're saying you refused to let security check your bag. Because they had no cause. I know. But they're saying it looked defensive. Natalie sat on the edge of the bed. Did you tell them I was in ICU all day? Pause. I wasn't on your floor. I didn't see. Then she hung up. No more calls came. By Thursday, her name was missing from the next week's shift board. By Friday, her photo was gone from the staff portal. She scrolled in disbelief. Even retirees had bios. But her profile redirected to a blank login screen. Erased. Mia paced the room behind her. You need a lawyer. That'll make me look guilty. You look guilty already to them. Natalie stared at the ceiling. I've delivered 23 babies in that hospital. Cleaned blood off the walls. Sat with dying patients when no one else would. Doesn't matter, Mia said. And that was the worst part. It didn't. That night, she pulled out her old nursing journal. The one she stopped writing in after her 3rd year. She flipped through pages. Shaky hands. First codes. Patient birthdays. Then something caught her eye. A photo. From 4 months ago. Her, standing near waiting room B. And behind her, on the wall, a mounted security camera. Visible. Clear angle of the whole corridor. Natalie sat up straight. She remembered the wing being under maintenance this week. But not last. And the footage? It would still be archived. If no one had wiped it. Natalie arrived at the hospital's public records office just after noon on Monday. She wore plain clothes, jeans, sweatshirt, a baseball cap pulled low. Not hiding. Just not inviting attention. The woman behind the front desk looked up, surprised. Can I help you? I need to request video archive footage, Natalie said calmly. From one of the hospital's public corridors. It's allowed under administrative transparency rules. The woman hesitated. Are you with security? No. But the footage I'm requesting includes me. I have a right to submit a request under Title 22, Section 70,727.6. I know the policy. That part she'd researched all weekend. The woman blinked, clearly thrown. Which corridor? Natalie slid a paper across the desk. Hallway adjacent to waiting room B. September 3rd. Between 3:30 and 4 p.m. The clerk took the paper and disappeared into the back room. 15 minutes passed. Natalie didn't move. Finally, the woman returned, without a drive. Without a form. Just a line. That footage was overwritten. Routine purge cycle. Sorry. Natalie's stomach turned cold. But the archives are held for 30 days. Usually, yes. But that wing's system was flagged for storage error. Natalie nodded slowly. Too smooth. Too ready. She leaned forward. Then show me the purge report. The system would have generated a log. The woman shifted uncomfortably. That's above my access level. Then get someone with the right access. I'm going to have to ask you to leave. Natalie stood. Her voice was steady now. Focused. I'm filing a formal request. I want the purge report, metadata on the footage, and chain of custody records for that week. The woman didn't answer. Natalie turned and walked out. 1 hour later, she submitted the request online. 3 hours after that, she got the reply. Request denied, insufficient standing. No appeal. No review. Just a wall. She stared at the rejection email. Then, slowly, she began writing. Every name, every shift, every room she'd worked on September 3rd. She built a timeline, minute by minute. Where she was. Who was near. Who could confirm her presence. She contacted 3 nurses. One said she didn't remember. One didn't reply. But the third, Javier, an ER tech, messaged back. Yeah, I remember. You were helping with that seizure kid, right? You walked out of ICU just before shift change. Natalie's heart jumped. She typed. Can you put that in writing? Long pause. I'll text it to you. But please don't tell anyone I sent it. It wasn't much. But it was something. Her first witness. Her first thread. She saved the message. Screenshotted it. Printed it twice. And for the first time in a week, she slept. Not peacefully, but with purpose. Natalie printed Javier's message and slid it into a folder next to the hospital policy manual. She added 2 other documents, her suspension letter and the original footage request denial. Then she opened a new document titled Timeline of Events, September 3rd. The more she wrote, the clearer the contradictions became. Her badge swipe log showed her clocking out at 3:42. Witnesses placed her in ICU until at least 3:40. The alleged theft happened at 3:50. In a room she had no access to. She typed with urgency, cross-referencing every detail. At 2:14 a.m., her email pinged. A new message. No subject line. Just 2 sentences. Stop digging. You're not helping yourself. No sender name. No reply address. She stared at the screen, then deleted nothing. Instead, she printed the email, folded it once, and added it to the folder. The next day, she went to the nurse licensing board. She didn't expect them to help, and they didn't. We can't interfere with internal employment matters, the representative said. If the police charge you, we'll review your status. What if there's no charge? Then it's up to your employer. Natalie stood. So even if I'm innocent, they can quietly erase me? The woman didn't look up. It happens. She left the office feeling smaller than ever. But she didn't stop. Next stop, the union rep. He was polite, respectful, but vague. They've already categorized this as a security event, which limits union jurisdiction. I pay dues, and we're advising. But if they don't pursue criminal charges, there's little recourse. So they win either way? He didn't answer. That night, she got another message. No name. You don't want people finding your nursing exam records, do you? Empty thread, unless someone had access to her file. Natalie spent the night calling data security firms. By morning, she'd found one willing to consult. If she had hard proof. She didn't. Not yet. But she had suspicion. She had timelines. She had silence from everyone who should have stood beside her. And now she had fear. Real fear. Not of jail. Of erasure. Of being labeled without a trial. Of being deleted from a career she built with blood and breath. She looked at the folder growing thicker on her kitchen table. Then she took out a pen and began writing names. Not of enemies, but of everyone who said nothing. Natalie stood in front of the mirror, holding the folder like a weapon. Inside, timelines, screenshots, messages, policies, statements. Everything she wasn't supposed to have. Everything they hoped she wouldn't keep. She dressed plainly, gray blazer, dark jeans. No scrubs. No hospital badge. By 10 a.m., she walked through the doors of the Office of Health Compliance and Oversight downtown. A concrete building. Cold. Bureaucratic. She waited 42 minutes. When they finally called her name, she stood with the folder in hand and walked into a bland room where a woman in glasses gestured her to sit. What's the nature of your complaint? Natalie opened the folder. Racial profiling. Internal misconduct. Suppression of evidence. The woman blinked. Natalie pushed the documents across the table. I'm a nurse. Or I was. I was falsely accused of theft by a hospital security team. No search. No warrant. Just a match in description. No one reviewed the footage. Then it disappeared. The woman skimmed a page. You're alleging they deleted surveillance? Or claimed it was. The hallway camera had no known faults. I documented proof it was operational days before. The deletion was convenient. Too convenient. She laid down more sheets. These are messages I received. Anonymous. Coercive. And this. She slid Javier's message forward. A witness. He remembers where I was. Confirms I couldn't have committed the theft. The woman leaned back. Why bring this here? Because the hospital ignored my requests. The union called it internal. HR said, investigation pending. Everyone's pretending they don't see it. What outcome are you hoping for? Natalie's answer was immediate. I want my name back. The woman nodded slowly, then spoke. We can open a formal complaint. It will take time. There's no guarantee the footage can be retrieved. We'll begin with a letter of inquiry to their legal team. Natalie asked the question she feared most. Will this stay quiet? The woman hesitated. We don't notify employers during preliminary assessment. But if it escalates. She left the sentence unfinished. Natalie understood. That night, someone followed her home. She saw the same car pass her building 3 times in an hour. She turned off her lights. Didn't sleep. At 6:15 a.m., her sister Mia called. Nat, someone called me. Said I should convince you to drop whatever you're doing with the state. They didn't say who they were. Just said you're risking everything. Natalie sat in silence. Then said, let them watch. And hung up. Natalie stared at her laptop screen, cursor blinking at the top of a blank email. The recipient field was already filled in. All-staff at stgeraldshealth.org. It was a risk. It could backfire. But she was past the point of caution. She began typing. Subject, a statement from Natalie Brooks, RN. To every nurse, tech, doctor, and aide I've ever worked beside. You've probably heard that I was suspended. You've probably been told I was uncooperative, that I refused a bag search, that I matched a description. What you weren't told is that no footage was reviewed before I was cuffed, that I was taken to the basement like a criminal, that they never even asked to see my badge, that my floor, ICU, confirmed I hadn't left my post. But none of it mattered, because I'm not just a nurse. I'm a black woman in scrubs. And for some of you, that was enough. You let them walk me past your desks. You let them erase my name from the portal. You said nothing. I'm not writing for sympathy. I don't need your guilt. I'm writing because silence is the reason this keeps happening. You watch it. You feel awkward. Then you keep working. Not this time. I've submitted a formal complaint to the state. I've documented every timeline, every lie. I've printed every threat. I'm not afraid. But you should be. Because one of your colleagues was nearly destroyed. And most of you didn't even ask why. I hope you sleep fine. I don't. She read it again. Once. Twice. Then clicked send. 15 minutes later, her phone started buzzing. One nurse. Then another. Some apologizing. Some stunned. Some angry, not at her, but at the silence she shattered. That afternoon, a call came from the hospital's legal office. Miss Brooks, we'd appreciate it if you refrained from contacting employees during an ongoing investigation. Her response was calm. When the hospital refrains from framing them, I'll consider it. Click. She walked outside. Sun on her face. Air in her lungs. No badge. No job. No certainty. But for the first time in 2 weeks. No shame. 2 days after the email, Natalie was summoned. Not officially, no letter, no HR packet. Just a voicemail from the hospital's Special Review Committee. Neutral name. Cold tone. We'd like to meet. Internal follow-up regarding your suspension. Please come to Administrative Tower 3, Room 204, 10:30 a.m. sharp. Natalie arrived early. No lawyer. No support. Just her folder, now swollen with paper, names, and timelines. Inside the room, 5 people. 2 from legal. 1 from HR. A representative from nursing operations. And someone she didn't recognize, later introduced as external compliance observer. They offered her water. She declined. The HR director spoke first. Miss Brooks, we're here in good faith to review the series of events involving your detainment, suspension, and subsequent correspondence with staff. Natalie didn't blink. You mean the email? Yes. The room tensed. She reached into her bag and placed 4 printed documents on the table. Timeline. staff statements, witness account, and my formal complaint with the Office of Health Oversight. The man from legal adjusted his glasses. Before we begin, we want to clarify. This isn't a disciplinary hearing. It's fact-finding. Then start with facts, Natalie said. Why was I cuffed without evidence? Pause. We regret the incident. But hospital security acted on what they believed was a credible report, without confirming footage, without questioning me, without even asking what floor I worked on. The HR director shifted. We're currently reviewing the conduct of the officers involved. Natalie leaned forward. The footage. Did you recover it? Silence. Then the compliance observer spoke. We located a backup server. A partial log. The camera facing waiting room B was operational. The footage wasn't purged. It was restricted. By who? Another pause. We're investigating that. Natalie stared at them. They weren't protecting the truth. They were protecting themselves. Damage control. Optics. Liability. What do you want from me? She asked. HR replied. We'd like to discuss possible reinstatement. With discretion. There it was. The offer. Come back quietly. Let it die. No press, no statement. The legal rep added. We'll issue a letter clearing your name. Natalie picked up her folder. I didn't come for a job. She stood. I came for the truth. And you buried it. She turned toward the door. I'll see you in the report summary. And walked out. She didn't know what would happen next. But for the first time, the system looked scared. Not because of her threat, but because she didn't want anything. She just wanted them exposed. The official report was released 12 days later. Not to the press, not to staff, but quietly posted deep in the hospital's internal compliance portal. A 19-page PDF titled, Internal Review Findings, September 3rd Incident, Employee Detainment, Natalie Brooks, RN. Natalie read it alone, seated in her sister's kitchen, a pen in her hand and her jaw clenched. Page 3. While the initial suspicion was based on a verbal description, hospital security did not follow standard verification protocols prior to detainment. Page 6. Archived video footage from waiting room B was found intact on a secondary server. Review confirms no presence of Ms. Brooks in or around the area during the time of the reported incident. Page 11. The involved security personnel were found to have bypassed supervisor clearance prior to use of restraints. Page 15. We find no evidence of misconduct by Ms. Brooks. The suspension is rescinded retroactively. No apology. No names. No accountability. Just passive verbs and empty language. Natalie kept reading. Page 17. While no permanent damage occurred, the institution recognizes the importance of reevaluating security training and bias response protocols. She laughed. Not from humor. From fury. They framed her. Dragged her. Silenced her. Now it was a training issue. She closed the document. By afternoon, the staff newsletter had a one-sentence note. Policy adjustments pending following recent review of internal procedures. No context. No explanation. But some people knew. Because later that evening, she got a message. I saw the report. I'm sorry I didn't speak up. Then another. You were right. I knew you weren't near the waiting room. And finally, from Linda, her old supervisor. You deserved better. I'm ashamed I wasn't braver. Natalie didn't respond. She didn't need apologies. She needed memory. Theirs. Hers. Because now, when someone else matched a description, maybe someone would ask for a second opinion. Or not. But either way, her name had been cleared. Not given back. Cleared. As if it had ever been dirty. The system hadn't collapsed. It had adjusted. Quietly. And that was enough. Not for justice. But for survival. And sometimes, in a world like this, survival was its own kind of power. Natalie didn't return to the ICU. She didn't accept the reinstatement letter. She didn't respond to HR's offer of back pay. Instead, she signed a release, not a settlement, that acknowledged her record was cleared and her employment ended by mutual agreement. Her last act? She walked into the hospital's education wing. The same floor where new nurses trained during orientation. The same place she once gave CPR lessons to bright-eyed students in their first uniforms. There, on the corkboard near the break room, she pinned one thing. A photo of herself, standing in blue scrubs, captioned, I didn't match the description. I matched their bias. Then she left. No speeches. No press. Just one line of truth, hung among staff birthday flyers and motivational quotes. 3 weeks passed. Natalie took a job at a community clinic across town, smaller, underfunded, imperfect. But she was seen there, respected. One of the patients, a tired mother with 3 kids, looked up one evening and said, "You got kind hands." Natalie smiled, not because it was new, but because it had almost been taken. One day, she sat alone in the exam room, lights dim, waiting for a late patient. She stared at the nurse's chair across from her, the same type she'd sat in hundreds of times back at the hospital. But this time, she wasn't afraid of being pulled out of it, because she knew who she was, and because she had never stolen anything, not even her dignity. She opened her journal, a fresh page, date at the top. Then she wrote, "If it happens again, I'll still speak. Not, if it happens to me. Just if it happens." Because someone had to remember, and someone had to warn the next person sitting in that chair. You're not crazy. You're not dangerous. You're not alone. You're just not them. And that was always enough for suspicion. But now, it would be enough for strength. Share your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories that inspire action and hope.